What are metaphysics? Metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, of reality. It includes abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. It is abstract theory of the unseen, so it has no basis in reality, but it is real because it exists. It is pretty much tied to the mind's eye, which is why I want to cover this in this video. The word metaphysics is the things after the physical body, if you translate it in Greek. And it can also be translated as the science of things, transcending what is physical or natural. So we're talking about energy. Metaphysics has a lot of common in psychology because psychology is all theory. And that is the one part that metaphysics and psychology have in common. I have always had an attraction to metaphysics from a psychological perspective. And since I discovered via my experience of life the importance in what you imagine, and having read a lot of metaphysical books and how they describe how your reality is affected by what you imagine, I am incredibly inclined to explore more connections in between metaphysics and psychology. Because there is a connection. I had an experience where I imagined things that didn't exist, but because I imagined them, my imagination began creating them in my reality. So now that I discovered a lot of the whys, a lot of the analog methods through which my mind was conditioned in order to create a completely different reality than the reality from everyone else, that in itself fills me with motivation and with a huge curiosity on finding more connecting areas between psychology and metaphysics. I am happy that I have already found one, and that is the fact that psychology is not an exact science. But from my understanding of metaphysics, what makes it an exact science is that what you imagine was what I experienced in real life. So I am extremely excited to read with you some of the writings of Florence Schovel Shinn. So if you're interested in metaphysics or psychology, if you're here for the mind's eye, then I know you will enjoy this video. And first, I'm going to tell you who Florence Schovel Shinn is. Florence was an artist and a metaphysics teacher in New York in the early 20th century. And she teaches how oneself can release abundance through a knowledge of spiritual law. And we're going to start with her book, Your Word is Your Wand. In chapter 1, she says the following: Jesus Christ emphasized the power of the word. By thy words, thou shalt be justified, and by thy words, thou shalt be condemned. And death and life are in the power of the tongue. Immediately after, she tells a story of a young woman whom she helped through an affirmation, where after continuing saying this affirmation, the young woman whom Florence helped was made a gift of $6,000. And that this came to be because of her fearless faith, and the spoken word brought it to pass. She says that the following affirmation is very powerful because it brings a vivid picture to the mind. And this is the affirmation: we bless the $2 and know that you have the magic purse of the Spirit. It can never be depleted. As money goes out, immediately money comes in under grace in perfect ways. The young woman replied to Florence Shinn, I feel my bag heavy with money. Then Florence goes ahead and says, the affirmation of the magic purse is very powerful as it brings a vivid picture to the mind. It is impossible to not see your purse or wallet filled with money when using the words crammed, jammed. The imaging faculty is a creative faculty, and it is important to choose words which bring a flash of the fulfillment of the demand. As we go on with this lesson from Florence, from my experiences like I mentioned, what I imagined became a reality. And within that same point, the fact that through my previous 6 years, 7 years of experiencing a completely different reality from the point that I began using my imagination, this tells me that psychology, metaphysics, and reality are connected via the imagination. So within this part, our first lesson, that I tell you it is the truth, and that if you don't believe me, try it yourself. What you imagine, you will see manifested. It changes your reality. That within itself reminds me of a book called Overachievement by Dr. John Elliott. He is an expert on high performance. He says of an experience where people have been able to reach incredible goals by keeping their imagination engaged. You should lead your life with the imagination first. So as you navigate your reality, don't focus on gossip. Don't focus on entertainment. If you are ambitious, focus on realizing your ambitions, because our days here on earth are counted. We have a finite amount of time on this earth, and 1/3 of that time we spend sleeping. So don't follow your dreams. Chase those motherfuckers down. The next part of the book, Your Word is Your Wand, says the following: power moves, but is never moved. When man stands calm and serene, has a good appetite, feels contented and happy, when appearances are against him, he has reached mastery. Then he has control. He has the power to rebuke the winds and the waves. So this part in itself is not said how any person would understand it. It is said very obscurely, but let me clarify this for you. I'm going to give you a real life example. This seems a little bit absurd to me, I'm not going to lie, but there is power to it. If one has a deranged customer and one works in retail, as if you keep your imagination busy imagining the customer finger bagging his kitty while the customer is acting completely deranged, your imagination is not going to be overtaken by your reality, because the reality is that there is a deranged customer who is being extremely difficult. However, you stay in control when you use your imagination to imagine the customer calm. I wouldn't imagine the customer calm. I would imagine the customer finger bagging his kitty, because that way I would feel better being in that situation where the deranged customer is yelling at me. So because I am there, however, my imagination is producing an overlay on my reality where I can hear the customer. However, I don't see the customer. Like reality imposes me to see the customer. It is my mind that is imposing my reality, not the customer, not reality itself. So in the reality that I live in, or that you live in, the customer has absolutely no power. The power is in oneself, because one is using the mind to control the perception of reality. So even though the customer is yelling at me, I will be completely unmoved, with absolutely no psychological disturbances, absolutely no physiological reactions. Because even though I am physically in the same reality, my consciousness is perceiving a completely different reality. The only part of reality that I am allowing to come into my mind, into my consciousness, is the vocalization of the customer. So I am listening what the customer is saying. However, the reality is not the same that the customer is in. I am living in a completely distinct reality from the customer in that point in time. So at that point, I am the one in control. I will stand calm. I will stand serene. I will feel contented and happy, even though appearances are against me. That is what she means. That through the wise use of your imagination, you are the one that is in complete control of your reality. Because at any point in time, you can imagine anything you want. And the mind, consciousness, only lives in one place at a time, either here or in the imagination. Now, where I find this a little absurd is when she talks about rebuking the winds and the waves. Like, if I am at the point drowning, I am not going to start imagining that I am not drowning. But metaphysically, if I imagine myself that I'm not drowning, when I am drowning, my body dies But I didn't die drowning. I just stopped having a consciousness. But I never drowned. So this is true even when you are dying. This is a somber idea, but as of now, everyone that is watching this video should only focus or should focus on only imagining and remembering good experiences. Because if you are stuck in a negative memory, in a negative remembrance, and a fucking rock falls on your head and you die, how tragic would it be that you die thinking of something that someone did to you? What an awful way of dying, don't you think? So, if you're continuously remembering a trauma or something that someone did to you, a misfortune, a mishap, for your own good, make sure that you're not thinking of that continuously and you don't ruminate. Because if you just happen to die at a moment where you are thinking of someone that you hate, it would be an absolute tragedy for that to happen when you're thinking of something that makes you feel sad. Now, moving on. We are moving on to the part 2 of this book, Success. She says, Florence says, there are certain words or pictures which impress the subconscious mind. She talks about a woman who lived in a small salary. And this woman read the book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, which is another book by Florence. And this young lady, after reading it, had a thought that came in a flash to start a small business for herself and to open a tea room and a candy shop. She says, the idea staggered at first, but it persisted. So she boldly went forth and procured a shop and assistant. She spoke the word for supply, for she did not have money to back her enterprise. It came in a miraculous way, and the shop opened. From the first day, it was filled with people, and now it is crammed, jammed. They stand in line and wait. One day, being a holiday, her assistants became gloomy and said they could not expect to do much business. However, the entrepreneurial woman said that God was her supply and every day was a good day. She says that an old friend of hers came into her shop that day and bought a 2-pound box of candy. He gave her a check, and when she looked, the check was for $100. $100 for one box of candy. She says every morning she enters the shop with wonder and gives thanks that she had the fearless faith that wins. In order to have faith, one has to imagine what one wants to manifest in reality. So this young woman wouldn't be able to have faith if she was imagining not making money. However, she replied to the coworker or to her worker when they told Florence, this young woman, that they wouldn't expect to do much business. However, she didn't reply, oh, I know, it's gloomy. I don't expect to do much business either. She didn't say that. She said, God is my supply and every day is a good day. That reply in itself tells us that her imagination was filled with pictures and images of herself making money and making a sale. Now, think back to your own life. When you are at your best, you're typically busy and possibly don't pay much attention to your imagination. But I can tell you one thing, that you are imagining everything but failure. So the lesson that Florence is trying to teach us in metaphysics is that even when our reality is showing us reasons for us to feel hopeless, discouraged, or out of control, we should not allow our imagination to imagine that we are not in control, that we are not encouraged. Quite the contrary, we should work extra hard to make sure that our imagination keeps picturing a fantastic day. Our imagination should always be imaging the best version of us, regardless of what reality puts in front of us, and regardless of what other people believe. If someone else says, oh, today is such a bad day, don't say, oh, I know. Even if you feel like it's a bad day, even if you agree at some level that it is a bad day, remember that there are aspects of reality that we don't understand. And metaphysics is a philosophy, it is a science that we do not understand completely yet. And one of the clues that we've had is all these people who dedicated their life to metaphysics agree on the same thing, what you imagine has a huge impact on your reality. I am not a metaphysician, but I can tell you that there is no greater truth of metaphysics, of the things that you cannot prove, that this is truth. I have lived it. So be incredibly careful with what you imagine. Get in the psychological habit of only imagining good things. Make it a reflex of, even when you see your bank account going down for whatever reason, make sure to imagine the numbers go up. Whenever you have sadness because you didn't accomplish something, don't imagine yourself not accomplishing it again. Imagine yourself accomplishing the goal easily and effortlessly. That is one of the hardest things to do, to only imagine good. But let me tell you, it is one of the truest truths I have ever lived. We're gonna finish this right here, and tomorrow we're gonna continue this video. We're gonna continue on part 3 of this book, and it is about prosperity. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night. This video is the part 2 of our lesson in psychology, mind's eye, and metaphysics. We are reviewing the writings of Florence Schovel Shinn, and we are interpreting her writings from the perspective of using the mind's eye, or the imagination, and we are making connections to actual psychological principles, which often include the subconscious. We are on the 3rd chapter of Florence Schovel Shinn's book, Your Word is Your Wand. The 3rd chapter covers prosperity, and it goes like this. Man comes into the world financed by God with all that he desired or requires already on his pathway. This supply is released through faith and the spoken word. If thou canst believe, all things are possible. Then Florence Schovel Shinn gives us an example of a woman who came to her and told her of this woman's experience using an affirmation. After reading her book, The Game of Life and How to Play It, this woman desired a position on the stage. However, she lacked experience, and the following affirmation is the one that she used. It goes like this. Infinite Spirit, open the way for my great abundance. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. And this resulted in a very important part giving her in a very successful opera. The woman said, it was a miracle due to the affirmation, which I repeated hundreds of times. So I'm going to tell you a personal experience with affirmations and with denial. So an affirmation is something that you repeat a lot of times, and you repeat the thought so much that it creates a new belief. So remember that what you believe, your mind is going to start looking for proof of this belief being true. I am covering this book from a realistic perspective, not from a magical, because what I am doing here is tying the reality and not the wishful thinking. I do this with all due respect to everyone who believes in the magic of metaphysics. And this is what I see as the truth. So I am reviewing this in the most realistic perspective that is not wishful thinking. A lot of people review these writings and they give it a lot of magical power. And that's fine. It is your mind, your imagination. You can do whatever it is you want. But just like with me drowning, and how it would be useless to imagine myself that I'm not drowning, that would cause me to die. In that circumstance, I would have to focus on not dying and not on imagining me not drowning. So I'm using the same time to the reality. However, I am applying these from a psychological perspective with a heavy dose of realism. However, I am not eliminating the possibility that things can happen. There is a fine line between negative thinking and reality. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So I'm going to continue speaking to you about what affirmations do to the subconscious mind. During my experience in life, I have used a lot of affirmations and they have done wonders. And because of my use of affirmations, I have been able to understand how they work. I'm going to start by explaining to you my application of the affirmation that goes like this. Every man is a golden link in the chain of my good, for all men are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given by man himself to serve the divine plan of his life. Bless your enemy, and you rob him of his ammunition. His arrows will be transmuted into blessings. When I was living the moment where I was getting gang stalked, I kept saying this affirmation to me: every man is a link to my own good, and that every experience that I had will serve the divine plan of my life. What this did is that it began making connections through what I was living in that point and opened a new perspective of my reality. And by that I mean that when I was getting gang stalked, instead of feeling that everyone was my enemy, instead of staying resentful, instead of staying moody, and instead of hating everyone, I adopted this perspective and I began seeing every perpetrator of gang stalking as God in manifestation, as a golden link in the chain of my good, which is what led me to this. And let me tell you what this YouTube channel, where I live, my current living situation has become. It has become the divine plan of my life because I have everything. I have a house to live, I have food to eat. Abundance is coming to me via the fact that I am in a place where I can dedicate my life solely to my work and to use all my life experiences, that every single one of those whom I had considered an enemy at one point became God in manifestation, became a lesson, became something that I can transmutate from an arrow, from an enemy, into a blessing. Because this channel is filled with blessings that were initially shot at me with the intent of being arrows. That is what these affirmations do to you. You have to repeat them so many times that it dives deep into your subconscious mind and it makes millions of connections with every single type of negative event, and it turns the event around and it opens a new perspective, a new way of seeing your life experience. So the affirmation becomes true. Thank you for reminding me of it, because I still feel a little bit of resentment, just a little bit, due to the experience of gang stalk. However, today I'm going to keep repeating this affirmation because it did a really positive change in my life. Now, going back into the reading, my interpretation of this part of Florence Schovel Shinn's book is that this woman, because of her belief in the word, in the affirmation, it stopped her from imagining herself not getting the part in the opera. So this woman kept saying the affirmation, and the affirmation allowed her mind to keep her imagination working and creating. How can I get into this industry? How can I get on a stage? So going back to the book Overachievement by Dr. Don Elliott. Dr. John Elliott says, being realistic is just an excuse for negative thinking. So what is being realistic? Normal people, average people, give themselves limits. But the truth is that when you want to do something, there is always a way. Always. And the truth is that being realistic is negative thinking, because reality in itself has no limits. If I wanted to win a Nobel Prize at this age, most realistic people would be like, that's impossible. And if you try, you probably won't make it. But is the goal really what would make life living? If I tried getting a Nobel Prize and I didn't get it before I died, I would probably live an incredibly exciting life because of all the study, because of all the people that I would have met. The journey in itself would possibly be the most incredible journey ever. And not only that, but it would mean that in order for me to put that goal into my to-do list, I would possibly end up having a job somewhere where I would have never thought I would end up working. I would possibly end up doing amazing things and learning a lot of things, which would be so much more fun and rewarding than being realistic. If I wanted to be realistic, I would probably just get a job at the DMV. And no offense to anyone that works at the DMV. And no offense to those who want to live a simple life. Some people, that is what they want from young. I have met these people, and these people are incredibly happy, and I respect them very much because they have accomplished their goal. But if you are someone like this woman with a particular ambition that seems almost unapproachable, just know that the possibility of you reaching that goal exists. And at the end of the day, reaching for it is going to be much more rewarding than going to a 9 to 5 every day for the rest of your life, from the morning to the evening. And throughout those times, you end up torturing yourself because you're daydreaming of what you really wanted to do in life. Now that is a tragedy. So this woman used the affirmation to stop her mind from imagining her not reaching her goal. And she got it done. Now we're gonna go to chapter 4, which is the chapter of happiness. And this is what Florence wrote. There can be no happiness where there is fear, apprehension, or dread. With perfect faith in God comes a feeling of security and happiness. When man knows that there is an invincible power that protects him in all that he loves and brings him to every righteous desire of his heart, he relaxes all nervous tension and is happy and satisfied. He is undisturbed by adverse appearances, knowing that infinite intelligence is protecting his interests and utilizing every situation to bring his good to pass. Uneasy lies the head that wears a frown. Anger, resentment, ill will, jealousy, and revenge rob man of his happiness and bring sickness, failure, and poverty to their way. Resentment has ruined more homes than drink, had killed more people than war. Then she goes ahead and Florence tells us the story of a woman who was healthy, happy, and married to the man she loved. The man died and left part of his estate to a relative. The woman was filled with resentment. She lost weight and was unable to do her work. She developed gallstones and became very ill. Then a metaphysician called upon her one day and said, "Woman, see what hate and resentment have done to you. They have caused hard stones to form in your body, and only forgiveness and goodwill can cure you." The woman saw the truth in the statement. She became harmonious and forgiving and regained her splendid health. So I'm gonna tell you something of my experience in life and experiencing hate, experiencing desiring ill will upon others. And is that when you desire revenge, when you desire ill will upon others, you are using your imagination to visualize ill will, to visualize hate, to visualize bad things. And even though you might be visualizing these things towards someone else, negative emotions, resentment, ill will, and anger have an effect on the body. I am not gonna tell you that this woman developed the gallstone because of the resentment, because there is no scientific proof. However, what I can tell you is that being in a negative emotional state will affect everything that you do. It could possibly affect the physiology. Actually, let's study that for a little bit. Let's look. Scientific proof of emotional states causing illness. So I almost forgot. There is evidence, there is scientific evidence of a positive and optimistic outlook in life improving your immune system. Your immune system ability to fight disease. And a negative psychological state is proven to reduce your ability to cope with stress and with fighting infections. This is truly backed up by scientific research. It is. It truly is. I just did a video on that. So the lesson of this chapter is to keep your imagination busy thinking of blessing, thinking of people loving you. Don't keep your mind busy with hate. Only allow your imagination to see good, because in the end, whenever you imagine ill will, whenever you imagine resentment, you are not hurting those people whom you hate. You are poisoning your own body. You're only hurting yourself. This is backed up by scientific research. So stop imagining arguments. Stop imagining vengeance. Stop imagining ill will. Stop thinking of resentment. Stop it, because the only person that is being hurt by those types of thoughts is you. All right? So we are done for the next 2 chapters of Florence Schovel Shinn's Your Word is Your Wand and The Mind's Eye. We are making connections and keeping a wishful thinking out of the equation. We are seeing these writings through an eye of realism. And We are understanding Florence Schovel Shinn's teaching from a scientific perspective, a realistic perspective, and how my experiences are tied into this, all without wishful thinking, only through truth and actual experiences. All right, thank you so much for watching. This is The Mind's Eye. Have a good evening or have a good day. Metaphysics is the power of changing your perception of reality via unproven methods, and psychology has the methods proven. When you think about it, metaphysics and psychology, both of them are about looking things out, thinking things clearly. However, metaphysics has more of a magical spark to it. It's more fantastical than traditional psychology. Both of them are about the mind of man. In this video, we're going to continue on the third part of our analyzation of Florence Schovel Shinn's metaphysical writing, Your Word is Your Wand, and traditional psychology. Of course, we are adding our mind's eye interpretation of it. So what we're going to do is that we are going to read a paragraph, we're going to interpret it, and then we're going to analyze it from a psychological perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, and then the interpretation of the mind's eye. We are on chapter 5, which is titled Love, and here we go. It says the following. With love usually comes terrific fear. Nearly every woman comes into the world with a mythical woman in the back of her mind who is to rob her love, who is to rob her of her love. She has been called the other woman. Of course, it comes from woman's belief in duality. So long as she visualizes interference, it will come. It is usually very difficult for a woman to see herself loved by the man she loves. So these affirmations are to impress the truth of the situation upon her subconscious mind, for in reality, there is only oneness. So this wasn't much of a chapter. It is pretty much an explanation of why these affirmations are required for someone who has fear in losing their love to another person. Now, I'm sure most of us can identify with this, right? Where when you love someone, in the back of your mind, there's always this fear of someone taking away their love from you. And let me tell you, if you have a really good taste in man, where you have to work, or woman, where you have to work for that person to even pay attention to you, it is likely that many people have had their eyes on him or her. So where does the fear come from when your significant other tells you every day that he or she loves you? I mean, taking into consideration anything that can happen, that fear could come from a weird look, an awkward silence, from anything. And in all sincerity, one, as a significant other, okay, who am I bullshitting? I'm sorry. Okay, this chapter about love, I am gonna be awful at it and I don't wanna feel like I'm bullshitting you. So, I am so sorry. But this whole aspect of love, I have met people that have told me that, and I have always had a bad experience. I just always have, every single time. So even though this idea of love I want to talk about, I can't talk to you about it in a sincere manner. I'm sorry, I never struggle to come up with a creative manner to speak to you, but this is just not gonna cut it for me. I personally am not interested in anything that has to do with love, because the only person that I love dearly is like my mom and my friends, which are not very many, and I'm always still hesitant in their sincerity, except my mom. So I'm gonna just tell you the mind's eye aspect of what Florence Schovel Shinn is saying, but I'm not gonna try to understand it, because to be honest, I have never felt the need to like love someone other than like someone that you know will love you back unconditionally. Maybe you are one of those lucky people who does have someone who you know loves you unconditionally. However, I have not been that lucky, but I do consider myself lucky because I was blessed with an amazing mother that loves me unconditionally. So I honestly do not feel the need to go out and look for a significant other, because that whole thing of like feeling fear for like this person getting stolen from you, I'm so sorry. This is just not for me. I am done with my emotions getting tied in and tied out, left and right by other people. Like, I like my mind to be calm and to not have to deal with it. So if someone comes to me where I know that that person is the one, that person better be fucking amazing, and there better be absolutely no doubt in my mind of this person's love. I have been incredibly trustworthy, and every single time I have been effed in the A. Now that we put that to the side, let's talk about love. The pure analyzation. I'm sorry, I just cannot connect with this. I just can't. I'm just not gonna connect with it. So look, the Florence Schovel Shinn is talking about a woman who has fear of another woman coming to steal her man's love. Cool, it's just normal. I've been there. So where is this fear coming from? It can come from several places, depending on the character of your loved other one. So they can either fucking purposely try to make you jealous, allow other people to get like too close to them, or it could be someone else trying to hit on your man, or it could just be you being insecure and letting your imagination take you into this reality where your man or your chick is cheating on you. So that's that. So not taking into consideration any of the other aspects, because that is not what this channel is about. This channel is about the mind's eye. Now, how the mind's eye is relevant is that if you love someone and you are continuously imagining you love someone being hit on, being a whore, and just hitting on other people, then that is insecurity that is deriving from your mind's eye. It is all your fault. If that's the case, if there is no other cause that invokes doubt into your mind. Okay, so now the truth is that love is tricky as hell. It just is. So I am no marriage counselor and I am not claiming to be one, but if your life is perfect, and look, if you are a person who is right now in an interpersonal relationship where you make yourself vulnerable to the other person better take care of your vulnerability. If the other person is using your vulnerability against you, then get the fuck out. That's one thing that I can tell you. In my experience, personally, there cannot be any shadow of doubt that your significant other loves you in every single way, shape, and form. If that's not the case, I would be fucking out. I've just dealt with crazy, manipulative, So, I'm sorry, but I am like not connecting with this chapter at all. Marriage, no. But because I am committed to this, we're gonna talk about marriage. Look, I'm gonna read what it says. I'm gonna only talk about the mind's eye perspective, and then I'm gonna move on. All right, because I am this material is not for me. So, chapter 6, marriage. Unless marriage is built upon the rock of oneness, it cannot stand. Two souls with but a single thought, two hearts that beat as one. The poet understood this, for unless man and wife are living the same thoughts or living in the same thought world, they must inevitably drift apart. Thought is a tremendous vibratory force, and man is drawn to his thought creations. For example, a man and a woman married and were apparently happy. The man became successful and his tastes improved, but the wife still lived in a limited consciousness. Whenever the man bought anything, he went to the best shops and selected what he needed regardless of the price. Whenever the wife went out, she haunted the 5 and 10 cent stores. He was living in thought on 5th Avenue, and her thought world was on 3rd Avenue. Dang. Eventually, the break separation came. We see this so often in the cases of rich and successful men who desert their faithful, hard-working wives later in life. The wife must keep pace with her husband's taste and ambitions and live in his thoughts, in his thought world. For where a man thinketh in his heart, there he is. There is for each person his other half, or divine selection. These two are one in their thought worlds. These are the two whom God has joined together, and no man shall or can part asunder. What is asunder? What a word. Oh my God, let me see. Divided, asunder. Oh my God, that is the word of the year. Isn't that an amazing word? Asunder. It sounds like, I don't know, it kind of sounds like surrender. Anyways, asunder. The twain shall be made, for in the superconscious mind of each is the same divine plan. So Florence Schovel Shinn is talking truth here. She's saying that both people have to be in the same world, in the same thought world, or they must share the same perception of the reality. If the man is rich, the woman has to feel rich, and vice versa. But to be honest, I'm not seeing this, because like if the woman is frugal and the man isn't, maybe the man can buy his shit because he's saving so much money because the woman is being frugal. Like, well, obviously marriage is something that I do not understand, and I'm not gonna pretend I understand it. So be it as it may, I'm so sorry if you have an understanding of marriage, or if you understand anything of this part. Just please write it in the comments, or tell me what I'm missing, because I am so disconnected from the idea of marriage in general, and I'm so disconnected from the idea of being in love that I just cannot identify, and I simply cannot seem to find any type of connection to this content, to this part of the book. So let's talk about forgiveness. I believe that you should forgive, however, never forget. And the reason, well, that we should be like that is because when you don't forgive someone, you're continuously upset. You're gonna only be focused on the things that this person has wronged you, and these unfortunate events and circumstances are gonna keep in your head. They just are. And the best way to deal with this is to just forgive and move on with your life. Because if you keep not forgiving, you are gonna have hate in your heart. And like I said in my previous video, which by the way are gonna be linked on the description, any type of negative emotion, any type of negative sensation or resentment or hate that you feel towards someone else is only gonna make you sick. Hate harms the hater. So if a lot of people hate you, if you have a lot of haters, feel proud, because these people are unknowingly hurting themselves. So, I don't know. Honestly, with this part of the book, I cannot connect. Now, the next chapter is about words of wisdom, is affirmations. Now, affirmations are manipulations of your subconscious mind into adopting a new belief. Adopting new beliefs make you see the world from a newly fresh perspective. It allows you to see opportunities, and you pretty much are breaking down your defenses of the subconscious mind, and by via repetition, you are opening your operating software of your own mind, of your own being, and you are adopting a new thought, a new belief, and this belief is implanted by repeating. Why affirmations are so powerful, and what is the mechanism through which they work. What is an affirmation? An affirmation is a phrase, a belief that one imposes on the subconscious mind via repetition. For example, when a prisoner of war is brainwashed, he is told he is wrong, he is stupid, he's worthless, until he has a psychological breakdown. During that breakdown, he is told the truth, and that truth is the new belief that the prisoner of war will adopt once he recovers from the breakdown. Affirmations are very much the same. However, they are done in a less severe manner. You are literally bombarding your subconscious mind with a new belief, and you repeat this belief until this belief is seated in your subconscious mind. And this new belief makes new connections to previous beliefs, and the new belief is successfully installed. A new belief will allow you to see new opportunities. Of course, this depends on which belief we're talking about. For example, if I feel lost in life and I see no way out, and I start saying an affirmation such as, God has no limits, therefore, me as the Son of God have no limits. And I can get to the point where I just repeat this and I bombard my subconscious mind with just this affirmation for a day or two. And what this is going to do is that it is going to attach itself into my subconscious mind, and it will allow me to see the world with no limits. It is autosuggestion. And autosuggestion is incredibly powerful because the change is real. It is the same thing where a psychologist tells a new truth to the patient. The truth to the psychologist isn't important. What is important is that the patient adopts a new belief that appears to be true to the patient. And it is a new belief that allows the patient to go on with his life happily. That's it. So that is how affirmations work. They are new beliefs implanted on the subconscious mind via repetition. Now, I am looking through the book and I just found that there is actually more than affirmations. And the next one, chapter 9, is about faith. And this is how it goes. Hope looks forward. Faith knows it has already received and acts accordingly. In my classes, I often emphasize the importance of digging ditches or preparing for the thing you ask for, which shows active faith and brings the demonstration to pass. A man in my class, whom I called the life of the party because he always tried to find a question I couldn't answer, but he never succeeded, asked, "Why is it then a lot of women who prepared hope chests never get married?" I replied, "Because it is a hope chest and not a faith chest." The prospective bride also violates law in telling others about it. Friends come in and sit on the hope chest and either doubt or hope she'll never succeed. Well, with friends like that, who would want enemies? Now, the student should never talk of a demonstration until it has gelled or comes to pass on the external. So a hope chest should become a faith chest and be kept from the public eye, and the word spoken for the divine selection of a husband under grace in a perfect way. Those whom God hath joined together, no thought can put asunder. Chapter number 8 on the book Your Word is Your Wand by Florence Schovel Shinn is a series of affirmations which are words of wisdom. I am going to go over a couple of them and we are going to analyze the wisdom in them. Now, as of this point, I have never experienced anything not helpful in the words of Florence Schovel Shinn. Everything that she has said in her books has been truly helpful. And let me tell you, I have had a lot of unconventional experiences where there were times where I needed wisdom, where I needed some help of thought. And her books have helped me in very tough moments where I've needed a little bit of motivation of what to do, or moments where I needed some faith. More than anything, her books have helped me keep faith. That is one aspect of her books that I really like, is that whenever I was at a point where I didn't see any exit or where I felt completely lost, her books accentuate and talk so much about faith that they helped me tremendously in regaining my faith back in myself. Now, faith is typically something that is reserved for religion. However, during the times where I made the greatest use of these books were times where I needed faith in myself. And depending on what you have been through, sometimes that is the most difficult faith to obtain, where you feel that hope is lost, where there's no way forward that you can clearly see. And her books are the ones that have helped me just push through some of my darkest moments. That is why I feel so endeared to her, because there were times where I had nothing and I felt like there was nothing, no direction. And she just explained faith in so many ways that it allowed me to see through the darkness. I do not mean to sound religious or esoteric, but there are times where you truly see no way forward, where your headlights are not working. And she just tells you, listen, you do not need to see the whole road. You won't. Only look at the next yard forward. That's all you need. And then yard by yard, you're going to make it to the end. And she was right, which is why we're going to talk about this affirmation that says, faith is elastic. Stretch it to the end of your demonstration. And, sometimes, anytime that you feel lost, a lot of times, anytime that you feel lost is because you lost faith, be it on the people that surround you, or be it on yourself or your ability to move forward. Regardless of what your lack of faith is due to, what you have to keep in mind is that not having faith, this is directly from her book, not having faith means that you have faith in the opposite, that you have faith in not being able to do things. So that's fear. So that's what Florence Schovel Shinn means by fear is inverted faith, is having faith in not being able to move forward. Those are some of the truest words I have ever heard. And when you think about it, they're true. I took up on this statement of hers before I even understood what it meant. It just sounded true, like there was something that I needed to understand about that statement. And when you stop having faith, means that you have faith in your inability to move forward. So her affirmation, faith is elastic. Stretch it to the end of your demonstration. This affirmation, I would say in moments where I look at the amount of work that I have ahead of me. And by looking at how much you have to do, you just get a bout of discouragement because it looks like a lot. But when you think of Henry Ford, look at what Ford is today. And if you have heard the story of Ford's beginnings, absolutely no one had faith in him. He was the only one that had faith in his dream, in his vision. And because he stretched his faith all the way to the demonstration, to the end of his demonstration, Ford is this conglomerate that changed lives. It literally changed America. And it all was thanks to Ford's ability to maintain faith all the way. So I noticed that it says stretch it to the end of your demonstration. So when your demonstration starts, you shouldn't stop having faith. You should keep it because you need to hold the faith, since it's going to be the fuel that pushes you through every single mishap during the demonstration. Now, we are moving on to the next affirmation, and it says the following: never hinder another's hunch. First of all, if you have a hunch, unless it is absolutely necessary for you to tell someone about your hunch, you shouldn't. You should just go through with it, because you never know the intention of the other person. If the other person feels envy, what can they possibly do about your hunch? Oh, I don't think that might work. Oh, I don't think you should do that. I think that's a bad idea. Florence herself addresses these details, is that whenever you're working on something, whenever you have a goal in mind, you should never be out and about telling people. And when someone tells you about their hunch, about their plans, never hinder them, never put them down because of it. I have noticed that is a lot of people's first reaction, because the first thing that others see who do not live in the world of thought, who see appearances as they impose themselves onto us, they only see limitation. But if you live and understand metaphysics, then you truly know that there are literally no limits for anything that anyone wants to do in their lives. Of course, the literal impossible, like trying to get a 4-year degree in the emergency room when you are like having your 5th heart attack and are at 100 years old. But even so, like when you put it like that, the possibility still exists. Like, as absurd as that might sound, the possibility still exists. So I guess that was a bad example, but let's say that you are drowning. Okay, I'm gonna cut that off the video. So the next one is fear and impatience demagnetize. Poise magnetizes. So this one is interesting. When you act out of fear and out of impatience, in my personal experience, things do seem to go off on the wrong side of the road. Because even though you might be doing good, if you're impatient and fearful, people feel that impatience and that fear. And if you do something with poise, with grace, especially if it's about helping others, then it will attract. So that I understand. Now we're moving on to the next chapter, chapter 9 of Florence Schovel Shinn's Your Word is Your Want. Chapter 9 is about faith, and it says the following: hope looks forward. Faith knows it has already received and acts accordingly. In my classes, I often empathize the importance of digging ditches or preparing for the thing you asked for, which shows active faith and brings the demonstration to pass. The student should never talk of a demonstration until it has gelled or it has come to pass on the external. So in this part of her book, hope is different than faith. So hope is just where you move on, hoping that something will happen. But faith means that you know it's gonna happen and that you act as if you have already received. So if you have ambition for a new job, let's say, a job that you want. Florence Schovel Shinn's way of getting that job from a metaphysical standpoint is for you to prepare as if you have already gotten the job. So if your job requires a new tie and work shoes that are very specific, buy them first. Buy them and see yourself in the job. Do as much as you can and behave as if the job is already yours. That within itself will help you grow your faith stronger. And she mentioned something really interesting that says, if you don't get what you want, keep faith, because if you don't get that which one that you wanted, you are gonna get its equivalent. So if you end up not getting that job, keep working at it, because maybe that job wasn't meant for you, but there is one that is meant for you that is gonna fulfill your needs, goals, and wants. And here is where Florence talks about not talking about your demonstration until it has come to pass. And again, the reason is that if you tell someone of a goal, someone can try to steer you away from accomplishing it, or can impose their own negative thoughts against your wish. And you never know the intentions of the other person. Someone could purposely do something to sabotage you. There is an affirmation that she talks here about. There's an affirmation here that she has written that says the following: I now exercise my fearless faith in 3 ways: by thinking, speaking, and acting. So this affirmation to me popped up because those are the ways that one can exercise fear or lack of faith. Thinking in your demonstration, not realizing, thinking of, speaking as if your demonstration will not happen, and acting in such a way that tells everyone that your as demonstration is not gonna come to pass. So now we're moving on to laws. Here we go. This is chapter 10. If man loses anything, it shows there is a belief of loss in his subconscious mind. As he erases this false belief, the article or its equivalent will appear on the external. So with this one, again, another disconnect. This is because I have lost a lot of things. However, I am not the type of person that is tied to material things. So when I lose something, I just deem it as lost. Yeah, it might hurt for a little bit, but then I will work hard and I will be able to get something better or newer. That's how I see loss. I have seen people lose things and, or things get stolen. I feel that is just the reality of life, and everyone at one point or another loses or gets something stolen from them. So I don't see loss as something to dwell on, even though one might dwell on it for a little bit, but then it's gonna pass. I also just lost my Nintendo Switch, so I don't wanna go over it because I'm gonna get sad. But I know that I'm gonna get another one. I'm gonna get the new one that it's coming out. I'm so excited. So I don't really feel like I have lost anything. And I look at that from the brightest perspective. So the fact that I lost it, I kind of see it as a little bit of a blessing, because that is what is allowing me to fearlessly focus on this channel. So how I see the loss of my Nintendo Switch is as a part of the process where I will be rewarded by something better because of the effort that I'm doing on the channel. So I don't see it as loss. I did see it as loss. I got sad, but I don't see it as a permanent loss. I see it almost like God's way of disciplining me into working. So yeah, but let's go over the next one is debt. And it says, if a man is in debt or people owe him money, it shows that a belief of debt is in the subconscious mind. This belief must be neutralized in order to change conditions. So the affirmations here on the chapter of debt are a little special because she says, if a man is in debt or people owe him money, it shows that a belief of debt is in his subconscious mind. This belief must be neutralized in order to change conditions. So she's saying that people should change psychologically before the actual condition of the debt changes. So if you see yourself as someone who is in debt, you're gonna probably stay in debt. Chapter number 12 is about sales. The following is interviews, guidance. I'm gonna pause. So as much as I like Florence Schovel Shinn, I feel that a lot of those chapters are filled with wishful thinking. Now, is there anything wrong with wishful thinking? Not really. However, I feel that the only chapters that we covered are the only ones that we need to understand the principles that she emphasizes in the rest of the book. That first, you should not work your imagination in a way that hinders you. For example, when Henry Ford was wanting to get a loan, there's no way that he was thinking about himself not getting a loan. He knew he was going to get a loan somewhere, which is why he didn't give up on getting the loan. Gold medalists, Olympians, they don't imagine themselves messing up. They don't imagine themselves breaking an arm. They just don't. They imagine themselves performing to the best of their ability. If sales, guidance, all of those things are easily summarized by using your mind's eye. You use your mind's eye in a way that will benefit you the most. It's gonna help you. You have to use it to be confident. You're not gonna imagine yourself looking like shit while you're going somewhere and expect to feel like confident. You're not gonna imagine yourself feeling not confident and expect to feel confident. No, you're gonna use your mind's eye to propel the thought or the sensation or the emotion that you wanna feel. In other words, if you wanna be confident, you imagine yourself being confident. If you wanna have like abs and be fit, like that's my future goal soon, and which starting today, I'm not gonna be imagining myself huffing and puffing and being all tired and eating junk food. No, I'm gonna imagine myself, having abs, working hard, enjoying the workout, and following a diet. That is what I'm gonna keep my mind busy. I'm not gonna imagine myself being in front of the television, having my fingers dusted in Cheeto dust and having big ass titties that can get milk. No, I'm not doing that. So that is the end of this series of Florence Schovel Shinn's the book, Your Word is Your Wand. And honestly, it didn't go like how I expected it to go. It didn't. I expected it to go from one side of the story to the end of the book. From one side of the book to the end. However, I felt like I was gonna be disingenuous, like not truth to what I stand for. And the truth is that people should only worry about the things that they have control over. For example, if I'm playing baseball and it's my turn at the bat, I cannot control what the pitcher is gonna do. I cannot control how hard the wind is gonna blow after the pitcher throws the ball. What I have control over is where I put the bat, how I swing, my stance, where I put my eyes, what I'm thinking of, what I am doing, what is actually under my control. That is what I will put faith on, and I would have faith in my previous training up to that point for me to actually hit the ball. If I didn't hit the ball, then I did what I could. And because I did what I could to the best of my ability at that point, because of my previous practice in my preparation for that point, then regardless of me hitting the bat or not, I will feel proud of myself because I did what I knew at that point in time, because I gave it my best. In this book, Florence talks a lot about things that are not under one's control. Like for sales, if I'm trying to sell something, I'm going to do everything possible to increase my ability to sell, such as looking good, such as being charismatic, being poised, having faith in my product, and learning as much I can about sales in order for me to make that sale. And in making sure that the customer understands the value, I'm going to build up value, and I am going to do as much as I possibly can in order for me to sell the product. And if one customer doesn't sell it, I have to make sure to get another lead in order for me to make the sale. I'm not gonna do some wishful thinking and believe that an affirmation is gonna make the sale for me. However, I'm not gonna imagine that the next customer or the next lead is not gonna buy. I have to imagine And I have to be confident that I'm gonna make the sale, even if I don't. Because if I'm expecting to make the sale, if I wanna make the sale, I have to have the expectation of making the sale. And if one doesn't buy it, I'm gonna do my best on the next one. Maybe I will go freshen up on my sales training and then try again. Because that is sales and that is life. One can only control what one can truly control. If I'm at the bat at a baseball game, I am not gonna say an affirmation that says, "Oh, the pitcher is gonna throw the right throw that is gonna be perfectly matching my swing of the bat." No, that is why people lose faith in metaphysics. Is because metaphysics, some people take them as magic, but there is no magic in metaphysics. One thing, however, that is still unproven, that is the most subversive and most controversial part of metaphysics, is how your thoughts might affect what happens in your real life. I have experienced that from an aspect of where my mind has produced a vision because I believe that someone was hiding in a corner, and the unknown in metaphysics is the following. Will me imagining myself becoming a millionaire and thinking about it all the time somehow affect the world around me in such a way that the specific opportunity will manifest? And that is the one thing that I don't know. But let me tell you, I'm not taking any chances, and I don't think you should too, in imagining yourself not accomplishing the goal. That is the big conundrum of metaphysics. Is it that you work hard to make something happen, or the act of you imagining and working your mind only to think of that goal happening made a change in the entire universe, where your vision just had enough power to affect your reality in such a heavy way that the perfect opportunity was for you to take. However, what produced that opportunity was your thinking, was your thought. That is what we won't ever know, and that is the biggest secret of metaphysics, is that are my thoughts actually able to change the world around me? And regardless of that being provable or not, it is not helpful to believe otherwise. It just isn't. It's not proven, but there are enough people that say that that's the case, to the point where I am gonna actually apply that, where I'm actually gonna imagine myself having my perfect body, having a shit ton of money, and accomplishing all my goals. And regardless if it was my effort or if it was my thought that I put out into the universe, I'm gonna do exactly that because it feels right. It feels like that's the way where you start with the mind, you lead with your mind's eye, and then the world around you is gonna shape up to make that a reality. And that is gonna be the topic of our next video. Is we're gonna discuss the reality of metaphysics. Is it the thought or is it the effort? We'll never find out, but we can talk about it. All right, thank you so much for watching. Bye.